Commanders hire Dan Quinn to match with their new general manager, Adam Peters, to lead this franchise into the future.
The way that we live is not for everybody, okay? It's not, all right? Because we're going to run and put our bodies on people in a violent manner.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, what a thrilling Sunday victory it was for the Washington Commanders as they overcome 5 turnovers to defeat the Philadelphia Eagles 36-33 in epic fashion. Jaden Daniels, 5 touchdown passes, including a game winner with 6 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Just a crazy game full of ups and downs, ebbs and flows. It was a roller coaster of emotion for most of us. A terrible start. A couple of disappointing, dips in the game where you thought Washington could wrestle, control back from the Eagles despite the mistakes that had been made. And then they would make another mistake, or the officials would impart themselves into the equation. But when it was all said and done, this team, they grit their teeth, they bared down, and they found a way to get it done. And they showed us just what kind of intestinal fortitude that they have. This is a team that won't quit, whether the outcome is favorable or not. This is a team that's going to fight to the bitter end. And I think you should now be fully aware that we're never out of a game as long as we got 5 on our side. And so he did it again in this football game, did Jaden Daniels, really leading this team to victory. I mean, this was a one-man show. Led the team in rushing, obviously led the team in passing, accounted for all 5 touchdowns. You name it, he did it in this game. He was spectacular. But the Commanders are now 1 win away or a Buccaneers loss away from clinching a playoff berth. They're not actually out of the NFC East race either, but they're a long shot there. I think most of us understand that it's either the 7th or the 6th seed for the Commanders. There's still an outside shot that they can get the 6th seed, but they're going to need Green Bay to lose next week to Minnesota, and then the Commanders are going to have to win out in order to get the 6th seed. So that's not out of the realm of possibility, but they're going to need a little bit of help for that. They don't need anyone's help now after this victory from Sunday against the Philadelphia Eagles. They don't need anyone's help to do what, for most of us, was an afterthought before the season started, which was making the playoffs. And they're 1 game away from that. But celebrate! Victory Monday. This is awesome. This is awesome. 10-5 for the first time through 10 wins for the first time through 15 or 16 weeks, or we'll just say 15 games since the NFL schedule has changed a bit with the 18-week schedule, 17-game schedule. But first time through 15 games, the Commanders have won 10 games since 1991. It's been a while that they've gotten it done through 15 games. So, and there's still 2 left. There's still some damage that can be done by this team. But they're going to have to play a lot better than they did on Sunday. That is for sure, which takes us to our keys to victory. Generally, again, and we've had some wins this season where they didn't necessarily meet the criteria of the keys to victory because we've defied the odds several times this season, and this was yet another game in which we defied the odds. So you start with the offensive keys. Fast start. That feels like an oxymoron. Fast start. There was nothing fast about the Commanders in this game at the beginning. And what start for the Commanders on offense? They were as dead could be to begin this football game. So Um, I put down in parentheses 7 to 10 points in the first quarter. Well, they actually did score 7 points. The problem was they turned it over once and they gave up 21 points in the first frame. So um, technically you could get a half a point here because they did do what I asked them to do, which was score 7 points. You don't expect to give up 21 in the first frame, but that's what happened. But even with them scoring the 7 points in the first quarter, it was a slow quarter. It was anything but a fast start for the Commanders. So no points there. I can't give them anything for that. If not for Frankie Louvu's interception, giving them prime real estate, they probably don't score anything in the opening frame. So not the fast start we were looking for. Establish the run and attack the Eagles' edges was the next offensive key, and I asked for 130 rush yards or more in this game. Um, we did not do any of that. We did not establish the run. As a matter of fact, the first 3 plays of the game were all passes, and that set the tone for the day. And after I saw Cliff Kingsbury's approach, again, you're talking about your first 15 scripted. Now, the first play, you had Olamide Zaccheaus wide open, and Jaden Daniels airmailed it over his head by 5 yards. So maybe if you complete that pass, he would have gotten a first down because he was standing at 8 yards up the field with about another 7 yards of space when he missed that throw. Had he completed that pass, it would have been a first down, and then maybe they go to the run on the very next play. That's a realistic possibility, but we'll never know because he missed the pass, and the next 2 were passes, and ultimately we ended up in a fourth and short situation that we went for and did not get. And it was a sign of things to come in terms of our unwillingness to really press the issue from a run game standpoint. We really didn't go out of our way to establish the run, and we were really looking to put it on Jaden Daniels' shoulders. It felt like they just didn't think they could run on Philadelphia for whatever reason. They didn't do what I asked them to do, which was don't pull from in front of Jalen Carter. They did that. He got into the backfield. He forced B-Rob to fumble on the second possession of the game. And I said attack the Eagles' edges. They kept trying to run up the middle. And so, and then when they did try to attack the edges, it was slow developing and it didn't get the job done. So the run game was non-effective unless it was Jaden Daniels, unless it was 5. He led the team in rushing with 81 yards and pretty much did it all by himself. So no points there. Protect Jaden and the Duke. And in parentheses, I put no giveaways and only 1 to 2 legit sacks given up. So they get half credit here. Obviously, they did protect Jaden. He only was sacked once. In the first game against Philadelphia, it felt like he was sacked 4 times maybe and pressured another 5 or 6 times in that game. Nothing about his game the first time was comfortable. He was flustered. He looked overwhelmed, and clearly he wasn't himself, but he didn't look comfortable. And a lot of that was due to the pressure that the Eagles were able to apply with just rushing 4. In this game, the Eagles blitzed more than any other team did against Jaden Daniels in his rookie season thus far. So in his NFL career, his short NFL career thus far, he had not seen more 5 or more man pressures in a game than he did against Philadelphia, and he handled it well, but so did this offensive line who gave him time to survey the field and get the football where it needed to go. So got to credit the offensive line for that. They did not run block, but they did pass block in this game. However, the turnovers, different story, obviously. I said no turnovers, no giveaways. We only had 1 the last time we played Philadelphia. We had 5 this time, and somehow we still managed to win the game. But that's not what we call protecting the Duke, now is it? So I did give half credit because despite the turnovers, and there were a lot of them, protecting Jaden was what allowed us to ultimately scratch and claw our way back into the game and then ultimately come back and win. Without the protection, without Jaden having the opportunity to hit De'Ami Brown on a deep ball, hit Terry McLaurin on a deep ball for a touchdown, hit Jamison Crowder twice, hit Olamide Zaccheaus twice for touchdowns. Without the protection that was afforded to him in this game, there's no 36 points scored. There's no victory for the Commanders. and there's no time for Jaden to do what he ultimately did. So, got to give them at least half credit there because they did protect Jaden, although the offense did not protect the Duke at all. So half point there. And then lastly, the final offensive key was 3 explosives, which in parentheses I put 20 yards or more, plays of 20 yards or more, right? I wanted 3 of those in the game. Convert on third downs. I wanted 45%. That was our average on the season. We were converting 45% of our fourth downs. And this season, when we've converted over 40% of our third downs, we're undefeated now, 9-0 on the season when we convert 40% or more on third downs. So the number for me was 45. We converted at almost 60% in this game. We were 7 of 13. So we had 4 explosive plays of 20 yards or more. I asked for 3, so they checked off that box as well. And then I said, finish in the red zone. I said, no worse than 2 of 3, right? We were 3 of 4 in the red zone, and B-Rob's fumble was the only time that we did not score a touchdown in the red zone. Again, a big part of the reason why we were able to win this game is that we continued to press the Eagles in the red zone and finished off drives with touchdowns and not field goals. And then score was the last part of that equation. Score in all caps. And in parentheses, I put make kicks and 3 touchdowns in this game. Bare minimum. You had to score at least 3 touchdowns if you're going to beat the Eagles. We scored 5 touchdowns in the game and a 2-point conversion. So they took care of business in that last category, and it was massive. Without that last one, obviously we do not win this game. So they get a full point there on the final offensive key of the game. Defensively, your first key was to start fast. Well, and in parentheses, I put no first quarter points allowed. Eagles came in as the worst first quarter offense. They'd scored 10 points the week prior against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first quarter, marking the first time this season they had scored a touchdown in the first quarter. So they were awful in the first quarter. And then there was Sunday, where they looked like one of the best teams in football in the first quarter, scoring 21 points. Saquon Barkley over 100 yards rushing in the opening frame. And not just 100 yards rushing in the opening frame, 100 yards rushing in the first 7 minutes of the first quarter, as when he bust off the 68-yard touchdown run to make it 21-7, there was still over 7 minutes to go in the first quarter. Unbelievable. That had to be the longest quarter I've ever witnessed in my life. I swear to you, that first quarter had to be every bit of 45 to 50 minutes long. 45 to 50 minutes long was that first quarter. So, no, they did not start fast, obviously giving up 21 points. And the offense did not help matters by turning it over twice in the first quarter with the turnover on downs on the opening possession and the fumble by Brian Robinson. But the defense didn't have to give up a touchdown every single time after either, right? Kenny Pickett came in the game. You didn't need to give up touchdowns. You didn't need to give up a 68-yard run to Saquon, right? So, no, there was not a fast start by the defense. So no points there. The next defensive key was slow down Barkley for 4 quarters and eliminate the explosives, right? And then in parentheses, I put 95 yards for Barkley total in this game in terms of his rush total. And as a team, the Eagles, because you had to factor in Jalen Hurts' legs and what he would be able to do and add to the mix, 130 for the team and Kenneth Gainwell. All of them needed to be encompassed in that 130 yards rushing. Well, Saquon by himself had 150 yards. However, as I just mentioned, 106 of them came in the first quarter on just 7 carries. And then for the remainder of the game, he had 22 carries for 44 yards. So it was terrible first quarter rush defense, and then it was lights out rush defense the rest of the way. And so I gave us a half point for that, because while it wasn't for 4 quarters and they didn't eliminate the explosives, they did give one up in the first quarter. If you just separate the first quarter, because it literally was its own entity, that was not who we were the rest of the game, they did a hell of a job on Saquon. You know, that was a winning performance. Part of the reason we were able to win the game is because They silenced Saquon Barkley after the ridiculous first quarter he turned in. So, big ups to the defense for digging in and standing up for themselves, showing some life. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And they eventually stood up for themselves and stopped Saquon Barkley, and that gave the offense enough opportunities to try and win the game, and they were ultimately able to do that. Next defensive key, so they got a half point there. Next defensive key, disciplined but disruptive rush against Hurts. Ball is life, in parentheses, need at least one turnover forced. So obviously they rushed after Hurts once, flushed him from the pocket. He took off and ran, got a substantial gain, and then got knocked out of the game. So I thought they had a really good and disruptive rush against Kenny Pickett when he was in there. He did get away a couple of times and was able to create stuff with his legs, but for the most part, even the fourth down that he threw to A.J. Brown, it was him extending the play with his legs and finding A.J. Brown, and A.J. did the rest. So I thought the rush was good, and I asked for at least a turnover. We didn't force a single turnover the last time we played the Eagles, but the ball was on the ground twice in that Eagles game. We just didn't recover it. Same thing here, right? Ball was on the ground, I think twice in this game. For sure, once Pickett fumbled, but we didn't recover. But we did force an interception. So we were able to, and that was a big turning point in the game. We were lifeless at that point. That gave us life. That ball is life, right? Literally, that interception breathed life into this team and ultimately into the offense in this game. Because without it, we probably die right there on the table, right? That interception by Frankie Louvu literally was emergency surgery, right? And it saved our life. Ball was life. It's what's never more true than on Sunday versus the Philadelphia Eagles. So we got a point there, right? And then the last defensive key was finish strong, right? Fourth quarter, in parentheses, I put fourth quarter, show up, because that had been a big problem for this team. We had been one of the worst, we had been the worst fourth quarter team in the entire National Football League. And last week was pretty rough against New Orleans. And it really, begged the question, can this team get it together when it matters most in the fourth quarter? And for most of us, the answer was no. But on Sunday against the Eagles, they were able to do it. Now, I will say this, if Devontae Smith just catches the football, we would probably be singing the same song about this defense. Unable to get it done in crucial moments. But as fate would have it, he dropped the football. The defense got it done. They forced a field goal. It allowed us to get the football back, and it allowed Jaden Daniels to do what he ultimately did, which is solidify himself as a bona fide superstar in this league at the quarterback position, and one of them ones. So hats off to the defense. They fought their asses off all day, and they made just enough plays to give us a chance to win despite having 5 turnovers from the offense. So full point there, right? Full check mark and point there. So when it's all said and done, 1.5 on the offensive side, 2.5 on the defensive side. You put that together, it's a grand total of 4 points. Generally, you don't win with 4 points out of 8. We've had this discussion before. Anything below 5.5 is dicey. 5.5 is pushing it, but you can win a game with that. Anything above 5.5, you should win, theoretically speaking, or at least be in a great position to win. Anything below 5.5, and you probably should lose the game. You may be able to get away with 5, but anything below that is usually a death sentence. And for us to turn it over 5 times, which is a reflection of this, which it impacted our start both offensively and defensively, to not establish the run of any sort other than Jaden Daniels and his legs, to do the things that we did in this game and to still win is a testament to this team's mental toughness and their mental makeup. They've talked about the brotherhood. They've talked about leaning on each other. They've talked about adversity, building character, and making them stronger. Well, you saw it firsthand on Sunday versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Not many teams are overcoming, 14-0, 21-7, all in the first quarter, all the while giving up 106 yards on the ground on just 7 carries and 2 touchdowns to Saquon Barkley. Not many teams are overcoming 5 turnovers, including a backbreaker with 3 minutes to go, which felt like it was the game clincher. Not many teams are overcoming that, but this team did. Speaks volumes as to who they are and how they get down. Proud to be a fan of this team. I haven't been able to say that for a very long time, but I can say it now and I can say it proud. I'm proud to be a fan of this team. And that was a gutsy performance on Sunday. One that we really wanted bad as a fan base. Really wanted that one bad. So I'm glad they were able to go out and get it for us. Let's transition to in other news. Heard from DQ on his Victory Monday presser. We'll talk about what was said there. Kind of set the tone for what the week would look like as well. Obviously going to be altered with Christmas. So we'll get into all of that. Also, take a look at the snap counts for week number 16. Who played, who didn't, who came out of the game. DQ made mention of a couple of players that did not finish the game that I wasn't even aware of watching it live. So we'll talk about that. We'll take a look at the snap counts. But before we do that, let's transition to a quick break. Then we'll come out on the other side of that break and we'll go straight to snap counts and talk about what they look like from week number 16.
Look at these results. People are out here making free money, man. They're making thousands every month betting on sports completely risk-free. I know it sounds crazy. Hear me out. The secret? They're using OddsJam. OddsJam isn't just another betting app. It's turning the entire system in your favor. Here's how. OddsJam uses a strategy called arbitrage, finding odds differences across sports books. You bet both sides, and no matter the outcome, you will profit. Here's an example. If you put $500 on Boise State to win on FanDuel and $335 on their opponent, San Francisco, on DraftKings, you're guaranteed no matter what to make $50, win or lose. It's that simple. With the OddsJam mobile app, you'll get real-time alerts on these opportunities every day. People are making thousands monthly. And to get started, use the code LouieT for 35% off and a 7-day free trial. I guarantee you'll profit during the trial, and if you don't, cancel with just one click, no questions asked. Don't leave money on the table. Go to oddsjam.com, use the promo code LouieT, and start making money the smart way.
So let's take a look at the snap counts. We start offensively. 68 total offensive snaps in the game. And generally, if things go cleanly, it'll be 6 guys playing all 68 snaps or all 100% of the snaps offensively, the 5 offensive linemen, and of course, quarterback Jaden Daniels. Well, as you can see, only 4 of the offensive linemen made it out of this game clean, and then Jaden Daniels also. So obviously something happened to one of the offensive linemen. That offensive lineman was Andrew Wiley. I didn't even realize he did not finish the game. Did you? It did not dawn on me until DQ said it in the press conference for me to even look at the snap count to see. And sure enough, Andrew Wiley played 85% of the snaps, missed the final 10 snaps of the game with what I think DQ told us was a hamstring. Same can be said for Jordan McGee, who I did not know suffered an injury. I wouldn't have noticed Jordan McGee anyway. So I barely notice him when he gets in unless I see him make a tackle or, I see 58 rolling off a pile or something. Oh, Jordan McGee's in the game. That's what happened to me last week when I was watching him in New Orleans. Like, oh, there's Jordan McGee. A tackle was made and then he comes flying over the pile. I'm like, oh, 58. What are you doing here? Well, I see the big elbow brace, right? So that's something to keep an eye on. Andrew Wiley not finishing the game. Not like most of us are all that impacted by that. I think most of us think Cornelius Lucas is a better option over there anyway, but that's nor here nor there. Terry McLaurin, as he customarily does, led the team from a offensive line quarterback standpoint in snaps, he's always the next highest guy among skill position players. He had 62 snaps in this game for a whopping total of 91% of the snaps. Wiley, as I just mentioned, played 58 snaps. Zach Ertz coming off of the concussion. And what John Keim shared with us after the game was that it was more of Ertz's shoulder than it was the concussion that was really limiting him heading into this game. So it was really shocking to see him not only be able to bounce back from the concussion sustained against New Orleans, but also be able to play as many snaps as he did, 48 out of a possible 68 for 71%. Olamide Zaccheaus, obviously you're going to have Dyami Brown, Olamide Zaccheaus, and other guys like Jamison Crowder having to step up to collectively fill that number 2 void left by Noah Brown. And so Olamide Zaccheaus, 47 snaps, 69%, led the way there. Dyami Brown probably would have had more snaps, but he left the game a couple of times, once with the shoulder or a hand, and then returned very quickly after that, but then ultimately left the game with a hamstring. Don't know if he ever returned to action after that or not. 66% of the snaps for Dyami Brown. Hopefully he's good, because you saw the threat that he poses on the opposite side of Terry being able to stretch the football field vertically. Brian Robinson Jr., 43 snaps. That's a lot for a guy that fumbled twice. They stuck with him. DQ talked about that in his press conference. We'll get to that here shortly. Jamison Crowder, 31 snaps in the game for a 35% hit rate, or excuse me, 46%. John Bates, 24 snaps for 35%. Jeremy McNichols, 19 snaps. Probably a little bit more than he would have gotten had there not been the fumble issues, but he made the most of the snaps that he did get, including the 2-point conversion late in the game. Had a nice little run, too, on a red zone run where he was able to drag a couple of defenders and pick up some really good yards before we ultimately scored to OZ. Cornelius Lucas, as I mentioned, played the final 10 snaps offensively of the game, and he may be starting for us next week, and I don't think any of us would be upset about that, to be honest with you. But we'll keep an eye on Andrew Wiley because, again, you want to have as many offensive linemen healthy as possible. The more guys go down, the more your depth gets tested, and the more likely a guy that you don't want anywhere near the game is going to ultimately have to be in the game. So big ups to Brandon Coleman as well for playing all 68 snaps. He went down very briefly on a play, but got up, toughed it out, didn't come out of the game, and ultimately played every single snap. So good to see him continuing to play well. Luke McCaffrey, 9 snaps. Obviously, he's had a huge impact on special teams, but still really yet to make a dent as a wide receiver. Had a couple of targets in this game, both 2 of the 3, or he had 3 targets in this game, I believe. 2 of them ended up intercepted. 1 he caught on a wide receiver screen. So, again, another guy that's going to continue to see opportunities as the season wears on, potentially. Chris Rodriguez, 7 snaps. And Ben Sinnott, only 5. That might be a season low for Ben Sinnott. But I think that's more of a byproduct of us going away from the run and going to more 3, 4, wide receiver sets, and really emptying. How many times did Jaden go empty in this game? That doesn't bode well for a guy like Ben Sinnott, who his primary job is to be a blocker, an H-back, a fullback type of guy. So I think that's a direct correlation to the fact that we pretty much abandoned the run in this game. So you go from the offensive side of things to the defensive side. 74 total snaps in this game. A lot of damn snaps for the defense. Way more than you would like. 74 from Martin, Wagner, and Louvu all played all 74. Jeremy Chin played 72 of the 74. And again, very impressive. Similar to what I said about Zach Ertz coming off of a concussion a week ago. To play that many snaps is pretty damn impressive and remarkable. Mike Samer still 70 snaps for 95% of the snaps in week number 16. Marshawn Lattimore played 63 snaps, 85%. Obviously, he left the game and did not return with what we were told was a hamstring injury. So, very nervous there for the results on what that looks like. Noah Igbenogany, 62 snaps, 84%. Deron Payne, 56 snaps, 76%. Dante Fowler Jr., 44 snaps, 59%. Dorrance Armstrong, 43 snaps, 58%. Johnny Newton, 41 snaps, 55%. Sheldon Day, who continues to be an unsung hero on that defensive line. 33 snaps, 45%. Cleveland Farrell had himself a big day, forced a fumble, had a sack, almost had another sack. Cleveland Farrell was all over the field. 24 snaps for him, 32%. Carl Davis finally made his presence felt in this football game. 19 snaps, 26%. Jalen Holmes had a sack in this game. I told you the defensive line was really good. 16 snaps, 22%. Javonte John Baptiste, 15 snaps, 20%. Jordan McGee, as I mentioned, did not finish the game. 12 snaps. That's a lot of snaps for a guy who did not ultimately finish the game. So he's getting more and more opportunities. Hopefully it's nothing significant that's going to keep him out. He was trending in the right direction. 16%. Percy Butler, 11 snaps. Benjamin St-Juste, 10 snaps. And they were vital to this team's success, almost to this team's detriment. But ultimately, that tackle was huge by Benjamin St-Juste. Say whatever you want. Without that tackle, we don't win this game. So those 10 snaps were huge, especially one in particular. Mike, and you could say, well, if he would have not given up the fourth down, then we wouldn't have been in that position. Touche, right? Touche. But still, that did happen, and he did make that tackle. And Michael Walker, 3 snaps, 5%. So let's talk about what DQ had to say, and then we'll get out of here on this beautiful Victory Monday. So DQ talked about a number of topics. He started off by, talking about how ugly the first quarter was, and that's not what you strive and attain to be. He said that this was not a statement victory because we didn't play well. He said that after the game, and he kind of reiterated that. He said he started off the press conference by saying, "Tell the truth Monday." And there was a lot of truths that had to be told because of how sloppy the performance was. Obviously, you don't win a lot of games in this league turning it over 5 times. And he was very disappointed, you could tell, by the 5 turnovers, as he should be. But he was also thrilled with the resilience this team showed and their ability to overcome adversity and battle back and find a way to get it done despite some bad calls from the officials, some ill-advised mistakes, and them just not getting it done at times. Penalties, things of that nature. They overcame all of it and found a way to win. And again, that's the mark of a good football team. It's not always going to be pretty, but it just needs to be gritty and, most importantly, a dub. And that's what it was on Sunday. He talked about Brian Robinson Jr. and, how you go about a guy that's struggling to, hold on to the ball. He said, look, it's the elephant in the room. You got to address it, though. We weren't going to just sweep it under the rug. He did fumble. He did turn it over twice. And, so you go over and as long as he can explain to you why it happened and he can tell you, then you feel good. When a guy doesn't know, that's when you're a little leery about putting him back in the game. He said, it's not like we were benching him. We went back to him and he made some plays. So I love that they stayed with him, even, because leave it up to the fan base, they would have buried him under the bench, right? I love that they went back to him because he's a vital part of this football team. Like it or not, Brian Robinson Jr. is a big part of what we do, not just this year, but moving forward. Yes, he needs a road dog and someone with speed to tag along with him. But make no mistake about it, Brian Robinson Jr. is a big part of this team. And for those of you who, jumped ship on him on Sunday, that's crazy because literally just 2-3 weeks ago, we were talking about how this team wasn't the same without B-Rob's physicality. Without him in the lineup, without his presence, we just don't have the same edge. And, now 2-3 weeks later, he has a couple of fumbles and all of a sudden get rid of him, don't put him in the game, yada, yada, yada. That's crazy, right? Mistakes happen. But I need guys mentally tough enough to flush it and get on to the next play. And he was able to do that late in the game. Good pass protection, good catches, physical finishes. He ran tough, even though it didn't go, where it needed to go. On that final possession, he had a couple of big runs on 3rd and short, 2nd and short to get first downs. And he showed up at the end of that game. So he talked about B-Rob. He talked about Jaden Daniels, being cool, calm, and collected, handling the pressure, him and Bobby's embrace at the end of the game and knowing that was going to be that type of game. And, something that I talked about, it was crazy. I talked about this on the day after show, right? The day after reaction show. And I talked about this before I had even seen DQ's press conference yet. As a matter of fact, if you, watch that video, then my video came out before DQ's press conference. So hadn't even seen it yet. And I talked about that 4th and 11 and that being a pivotal play. And I talked about what I thought the psyche was in the decision-making process and the ideology behind going for it there. And he said, literally, I said that I thought DQ not only was looking at the way the game had gone, the Eagles had just come off of a 8-minute drive, right? But I said, going back a week ago, what they did to Pittsburgh, the Steelers only had the ball twice in the second half. I said that had to also play a part in him thinking, hey, we're not going to get many more opportunities if this game continues to go the way that it's going. We got to go for it now. And he literally said the same thing, right? The week before, they literally took over that game. And he said, we knew that this was going to be a 4-down game. They go for it on 4th down. We had to be aggressive. So they went in with that mindset. 4th and 11 is a bit steep, but, coming off of what they had just done on an 8-minute drive that went nowhere, but it took up all that time, you were running out of time. You were at the end of the third. You were down 13. Something had to be done. The team needed a spark, and he felt like 5 could do it. And that's exactly what 5 did. And it was the right decision. And it was a gutsy one, though. And if it didn't work, people would have been calling for his head. I loved the decision then. I love it even more now that it worked. But I loved it in the moment. Thought that needed to be done. We needed to go for it there. And he pretty much talked about why that he pressed that button at that time. He talked about the keeping their cool, right? That was a heated game, a lot of emotions. Obviously, we saw Chauncey Gardner Johnson get thrown out of the game. CJ Gardner Johnson get thrown out, and guys needing to keep their cool. And he reiterated that you can never put the team in a bad position. Like that's the line you can't cross. It's putting the team in a bad spot. And so we didn't do that, right? We didn't do that. He talked about, the receivers having to step up. OZ stepping up. He said he loved the amount of broken tackles in this game and the amount of tackles that were made. Saquon had the crazy start, but they buckled down for the following 3 quarters after that. And he was really proud of the tackling in the game. And he's like, it wasn't just one guy, it was swarming. And we saw that in this game. It was gang tackling. One guy would grab Saquon's legs and then 2 other guys would come and make sure he got down. Or they'd grab him and then 2 more guys would come and hit him and push him backwards. So, he's a strong guy and he can power through some stuff. So you got to show up with friends. And we did that in this game. So he talked about the OZ's ability to break tackles and just in general breaking tackles. He talked about feeling Diami's speed and how he was able to get vertical and how, guys stepped up. I talked about the field position game with Luke McCaffrey. And he said, I knew that Luke, getting into that space with his background might be an effective return man. He's like, Austin Eckler had really carved out a niche as a guy that was doing that at a really high level. And to see Luke come in and do what he's doing has been phenomenal in X place. He spoke about the team, being really disappointed in the turnover margin. Like we came into the game at +5 and we left this thing at +1. We were -4 in the turnover differential in the game. And he's like, that stinks, man. Like we can't do that. And we know that. We know that can't be done. But he's like, to be able to overcome that speaks volumes about this team, but you don't want to put yourself in that position. So we got to tighten up is essentially what he said. But, really excited about the win, obviously. And I think he feels like that win has a chance to galvanize this group even further. I mean, they already were a tight-knit group and kind of rolling as one, but this win has a chance to make them even, tighter in that bond. And he kind of spoke to that when he talked about Terry and Bobby Wagner embracing after the game. And then he kind of laid out the schedule for the week. Monday is normal. Tuesday, they're going to flip-flop Tuesday and Wednesday because Wednesday is Christmas, so they're going to be off. So Wednesday is normally your install day. It's your walkthrough day, kind of getting, the game plan set in. They're going to do that on Tuesday this week. They're going to be off Wednesday. and then they're going to jump back into it Thursday and Friday. So a little bit of a tweak there, nothing major, but it is going to be a little bit of a change for the schedule this week. So just something to keep your eye on if you're a fan of the squad. But I mean, you should expect that it's Christmas. So understand what it is, but I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this momentous Victory Monday. Celebrate! We're 10-5, and we're one step away from clinching a playoff berth. Damn, it feels good to be a gangster. We snapped the Eagles' 10-game win streak. We stopped them from getting the number 1 seed more likely than not. We kind of put them, I don't want to say we put their season in peril because they should still win the division and everything they want is still in front of them. But there are questions now, right, that didn't exist before, right? People are questioning their defense now. That's a good thing. Is Jalen Hurts okay? You never want to hurt anybody, but hey, it's a physical game. And if he gets hurt in the course of battle, it is what it is, right? And so that's a thing. They got Dallas coming up. They could lose that game. And, the one thing you want to be doing going into the postseason, you want to be playing your best football. And maybe this sends the Eagles, spiraling. Maybe it sends them sideways. We'll see. Maybe it refocuses them. Who knows, right? Ultimately, I'm happy that we got it done. It's less about them, more about us. We got it done, and I'm excited about that. And now we're one step closer to being where we want to be. First time beating the Eagles at home since 2020. Got that monkey off our back. And we continue to show that we belong in this division and we ain't going nowhere. So all of that feels good. All of it does. I got 5 on it. Y'all know what it is. Until next time, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good